Hey there, YouTube. It's Scott Schiller from Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts, and I'm going to show you how to make millions in the stock market. And that, my friends, is the magic of YouTube and editing software and your iPhone and your Canon Rebel camera. I'm just kidding. That's really like $7, so I could probably buy myself a cup of coffee these days. Anyways, I can't teach you how to make millions in the stock market. In fact, well, actually I could. If you want to make millions in the stock market, just do the exact opposite of what I do, and I probably work out for you. Can't tell you how to do that, but what I can show you how to do is wire your voltage regulator to your generator on your G503 Jeep. So let's do that instead. In the last electric video, I gave you a kind of little shot of this. This is part number A5082 and is the voltage regulator to the junction block wire. As you see here on the diagram, that's going to go to the battery position on our regulator. I'm going to show you how this is installed. You're going to use the eyelet end, and that's going to connect to the farthest side, which would be the passenger side of the junction block there on the firewall. We're going to connect that up, and then I'm also going to jump back a little bit here and show you the other short wire that connects to the top of that. Make sure you get that eyelet inside that collar, I'll call it, on the two-post junction there on the wall. Part number A5073, the filter to junction block wire, that we did when we wired the filterette, but I want to show it to you again because it is attached to the top side of that junction block, and it is pertinent here to what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and attach that shorter wire to the top there of the post, and then this is the piece of the video I'm going to show you one more time. This is where I fed that through the grommet there so we could get to the filterette that was inside underneath the dash on the firewall. This was a piece that we already installed again on the filterette wiring video, which is just the one previous in the electric series here on Team G503. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the generator to voltage regulator harness, and there's a bunch of various little pieces that we're going to need. I'm going to show you the diagram here. All the Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts wiring pieces come with these diagrams to make it easy for you, and you're going to see there's a bunch of fasteners. We'll be talking about the various sizes later in the video here, but I just want to show you the components here on the bench before we get started. Here is the ground strap that is standard, and this is the standard wiring harness from the voltage regulator to the generator. And this one is the one that I'm also going to be installing at the end of the video. This is the shielded version of that particular harness, and that is going to be for your radio suppression. The shielded version has to be purchased separately. It does not come in the standard wiring kit. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the negative battery cable. When you're working on electric, you're going to want to do that every time just to be safe and not to damage any of your components. And I've cleaned all the contact areas up with sandpaper and or a wire wheel attached to a Dremel tool just to make sure I've got a nice clean connection here when we connect our harness. One of the things I want to make very important here in this video is the actual post connections on the generator. I'm going to point them out. The top one of the larger one here is the armature. Then you've got your G for ground, and then you've got your FLD, which is the field post that we're going to be attaching to. And they're really important how you connect these up. Now, it's kind of difficult not to connect them right, but you really want to be aware of those locations just in case. On the bottom side here of our regulator, you will see that those locations are also labeled on each one of those tabs or ears or posts, as I will call them. And on the very corner here, it's hard to see here. Let me see if I can't get the camera squeezed in there so I can show you the post on the bottom or the insert where the ground will be connected. It's located right there on the left-hand side of the lower looking at it, and it's just a threaded insert that goes into the base there of the generator. There's a close shot of it there. You can see it kind of nice. It's kind of hard to get at here with all the wires in the way. You can get your hands in there pretty easily, though, with a screwdriver to attach the ground. Okay, let's go back to the bench here, and we'll pick up our pieces that we're going to be installing. I'm going to be installing the standard ground and the standard wire first. Let's take a close look at these here. Here we got our ground strap. That's just multi-strand with two connectors on the end of it. And then notice the two pieces that I've got here also, that one of them is a green wire with blue or black tracers on them, and then we've got the red wire with the white tracers. These screws and terminal connectors are part of the kit that Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts sells. It's the voltage regulator terminal fastener kit number A9050K, and it comes with the large screws there that I'm showing you, as well as the washers, that lock washers that go onto each one of those, as well as the screw that connects to that ground post on the bottom side of the regulator. Now the kit comes with the lock washers and the screw again, and notice it's just a plain lock washer. Now I have seen some applications where some folks have used the star washers. The lock washer is going to work for you just fine in that location. I like to get everything prepped up like this beforehand and then put it into a little magnetic cup so that way I don't lose everything once I get over there on the side of the Jeep. Now here's a little variation that I've seen a couple times. I've looked at the parts manual and the master parts manual. In some spots the it calls for a flat washer and a lock washer onto the ground strap there that attaches to the spot located on your generator. I've seen different variations. Again, if you know of any different variations or the exact correct way, it doesn't seem to be that there's any one specific one, and I think things have changed possibly over the years. Now, this nut is a special nut. This is a 1024 nut that attaches to the armature post, or the larger one, with the lock washer. Now, a lot of folks have asked that they can't seem, if it doesn't have the nut on their generator, they seem to get upset. They can't seem to find the exact same threads. That's not a common thread, that 1024. Those are available at Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts if you need. Don't try to force something or rethread that stud on your armature post. Let's go ahead here and remove the nut and the lock washer off the field terminal. From the master parts manual I have, it's listed as a 1032 hex head with the lock washer. Again, I have seen variants on this. I don't know whether when these generators have been built over the years that somebody has installed different studs, but those are the ones that are listed, and those are the ones that did come on my generator. The first thing we're going to do is attach the ground, and there I've got my lock washer, my flat washer, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert it through that eyelet. Now, I've got that eyelet crimp side facing down. I've tried to install this multiple ways and looked at multiple pictures, and this seems to be the most correct and the most direct way to get it to the regulator. I'm going to go ahead and install the ground screw here, and I'm only going to snug it up for the time being, so that way I can make little adjustments before I tighten everything down, and I want to get everything neat and tidy and make sure it's out of the way and not touching or making contact with any other wires that are in the engine compartment. Next, I'm going to take the opposite end of the ground strap and I'm going to flip it up to kind of make like an S. So after we attach this to the bottom side of the regulator, we'll be able to kind of manipulate that ground strap and make it really nice and neat. This is the screw that came with the Ron Fitzpatrick terminal kit. It's the longer of the two that goes to the ground strap, just so you don't get confused and put the long one inside that ground area on your generator. You can just simply reach down underneath and you can give that a tighten with your hand. And I'll show you this again here. This is tight to get into in the camera, but there you see how I've done that screw by hand, and then I'll get underneath there with a screwdriver and I'll tighten that back up. Again, not all the way tight yet because I want to keep my leads and my lines all in order and straight away and not touching anything or impeding anything else that's in the engine compartment. While I've got the camera so close here to the regulator, I'm going to try to show you these terminals up close and how they're labeled, because as we get later in the video here, they might not be easily readable. You'll see there that we've got the three terminals. One is labeled BAT, that is going to be for your battery, and then we've got ARM, which is your armature, and then we've got field, and you can see how those are clearly labeled. Okay, so now that we've got our ground strap installed, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and install that 2-wire harness onto the generator. We've got our 2 eyelet style connectors here on the end, and you'll notice the red and green wires. It's kind of hard to mess that up because there are different sizes. And on the opposite side, we have that D style and then an eyelet style that's quite large there for the connection that goes to the regulator. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the red wire, and I'm going to install that with the flat side of that terminal down onto the armature post on the generator. Then we can install the green wire onto the field terminal. Now just keep those kind of separate from each other. I know it's going to sound silly how I keep saying this, you'll keep them separated, but when you start cranking down on those nuts to tighten things in the screws, the wires have a tendency to twist, and we're going to want to keep those all straight and nice. Okay, there's my special nut again, the 1224 one, and we're going to put the lock washer onto the armature terminal first, and then we're going to put that nut on there, and we're just going to spin it on hand tight for the time being. Once you get all the fasteners on and connected, you can go back and you can hold individually each wire and keep the terminal from spinning as you tighten down the fasteners. And then I'll put the lock washer and the nut back onto the field terminal there, and same thing. We're just going to put the lock washer on there and we're going to put the nut on there hand tight, and then we'll move along to the opposite side of the wiring harness here, which I'm going to have to turn the camera around for you to see. And then we'll go ahead and we'll connect these larger connectors to the regulator. All they are is held on with those 2 screws and the lock washers I showed you in the beginning that comes with that attachment kit or terminal kit from Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts. I'm just going to take one of the screws and one of the lock washers and insert it into the connector on the opposite side of the harness. And as you can see here, I've got that D-style connector to the armature, and I've got the green one connected to the field. They're kind of hard to confuse because of the different shapes of the connectors. The next thing we need to do is we need to connect our battery wire that we showed in the beginning of the video, and that is going to be connected to the BAT terminal that I showed you earlier, or the battery terminal that is right there next to the ground. We've got everything all set up to go here, and I've held those with my hand and tightened those down, and then I'm going to go back now and tighten those 2. Now you see how I tighten them? They turn that wire a little bit, and that's what I was discussing with you earlier, is you want to be able to kind of manipulate those wires and get them all nice in order. So here's a shot here of how I tightened them down finally, and they're all separated nice, not touching anything, and they look nice and neat. So now that I've completed that all and it's all said and done, I'm going to go ahead and take it apart and I'm going to install the shielded wire set here, the harness. And I'm pretty excited about this. Again, this is something you have to purchase separately. This does not come and cannot be substituted in the standard wiring harness from RFJP. You notice here that the ground is actually the shield that's wrapped around those two wires for the field and the armature that are also shielded in that metal as well. So let's go ahead and install that. We're going to install it the same way we did, with the exception of, if you see those two little leads that are on the back side there, one is kind of flipped on that D, which I'll point to you there. That's the only difference on the regulator. And then we just hook up the green and the red and the ground the same exact way that we did the others. This shielded wire harness here is for radio suppression. I don't have a radio, nor do I expect to get one in the future, but I think that absolutely looks fantastic. Now we've got one more step here in the regulator generator setup, and that's going to be to polarize them, but I want to save that for a separate video, so you'll have to stay tuned for that one coming up in the very near future. Thank you for watching. So we got that all wired up. Hope I was kind of detailed about that for you. It's not really difficult to do. You just have to put A to A, B to B. Don't take me literally on that. You can go back and watch the video and see where the wires go. In the near future, we'll be doing a video on actually how you can test to make sure that your voltage regulator and your generator are working. But for now, let's just stick with the program here on wiring up the Jeep, get past that stage, and then we can dig into all the diagnostics and the fine-tuning details in the end. Until next time, my friends, keep it safe. Maybe I should get into the stock market. These videos kind of, well, they work, but they're not making me rich. Keep it safe and happy, Jeeping.